just fill you all in because it's something that could be helpful to everybody. As you know, the internet and devices are big worlds, a lot of scary things, and we ask Hashem. Anyway, so we also are not supposed to put ourselves in a place of test, and this is actually hashgacha pratis because it's literally the mitzvah that we're going to learn today. But where I'm coming from, it's a place called tag because there are a lot of filters out there in the world to put on the internet, et cetera, especially when you have kids, but even for ourselves. But I find that there is much more solid. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, today's mitzvah, I just want to pull up the act. We're doing two mitzvahs today. One is we're finishing the category of sexual inappropriateness. Daily mitzvah. And then we're starting with other things of holiness, which is in the area of kashrus, of kosher. So, get the exact words. I might not be able to because of my new tag. 1 second. Here we are. Here we are. So first mitzvah we're going to do today is 353. And this, if we need to give a general term for it, is promiscuity. So we spoke until now for many days about all forbidden sexual relations. And here we're saying that the precursor to that, sexual behavior, is not allowed. And there is discussion. Wow. So it's a very busy street. Okay. There is discussion if this is biblical or not. Rambam holds that it is biblical, and others hold that it's not. But of course, it's a mitzvah regardless. And the pasuk that we're following for this is ish el kal shar b'sari leitikruvu legales erva. So in other words, if Rambam spells out, we don't do things like basically with people that we're not allowed to sleep with. So we don't do the thing that comes before that. It says it spells out hugging and kissing, and then it says etc. So, you know, how do you categorize the etc.? So some people will say, I think this is a pretty good description, is anything you don't want to be caught doing with your secretary, or, you know, if it makes you uncomfortable, or, you know, something that's before. And again, it's that same idea that we don't put ourselves in the situation, but there's no such thing, I believe in, it just happened. It doesn't work that way. You talk to somebody, you talk to them in a certain way, okay? Flirting, I want to say flirting to an extreme. And then you, of course, do certain things, touch them a certain way, snuggle a certain way, of course, kissing and hugging. And then it happens. It doesn't just happen. So this is a big part of Torah, of how we behave. And it's also not just as a protective for that, but in general, it's a style of human. It's respectable. You know, it's in our day and age, all these things are allowed and encouraged. And the truth is that we think it's like new age, etc. It's as old as it gets. It says in the Torah, the reason, even though this is what you witnessed and been a part of in Egypt for 210 years when we were living there, it was a very promiscuous culture. We don't behave that way. Jews don't behave that way. And the bottom line is that all the big cultures and civilizations had this, and then they died, because this is not a wholesome model. When family life and everything that goes along with that is treasured, treated with respect, then a civilization can exist. If not, it is the downfall of civilization. So Torah has always maintained this line. It's truthful. It's much wholesome. It definitely provides for happier relationships and happier marriages. And this is a mitzvah in the Torah. Now, where it comes up very practically is in the laws of mikvah. So there's the idea, of course, we know that when a woman is nida, from when she gets her period until she immerses in the mikvah, a minimum amount of days, etc., her and her husband don't have intimacy. And along with that is what we call harchakos. Harchakos means physical distance. So this mitzvah applies to that, right? Since every sexual relations, these are things that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to kiss, you're not allowed to hug, etc. Then for a woman, you're not allowed to be with her husband when she's a nida, same thing. So that means only while she's a nida, you don't do these things. And so even though the main crux of the issue is not to sleep together, this is also considered biblical and what we don't do. And then in addition to that, which is interesting, is we have to create even more barriers when it comes to husband and wife, because they're in such a close relationship anyway, something very, very subtle, like passing something to one another, might ignite a fire that with a stranger wouldn't. So there's extra barriers that we put up for husband and wife. It's all about closeness and connection. We could talk about that. It's not a negative thing. It's actually an amazing thing. But that's the mitzvah and very much how it applies in a day-to-day in a Jewish person's life. Now we enter the category of food. As we know, a Jew is holy, and therefore we only eat certain foods. So the mitzvah for today, and we're going to continue tomorrow, etc. Mitzvah 149. And this is the mitzvah that how do we know that an animal is kosher? As you may know, the two main criteria for an animal, we're talking about a physical animal, not a fish, meaning not a fish, not a bird, is two things: that it has split hooves and that it chews its cud. And it's saying here that everyone, even a vegetarian, has to be able to identify what's a kosher animal and what's not a kosher animal. So this is the positive commandment for it. It doesn't spell out in the Torah separately a negative, like don't eat animals that don't have split hooves and chews its cud. But it is considered one of the mitzvahs because it says don't eat this animal, and also like we're inferred, if you're only allowed to eat animals that have these two things, obviously you can't eat the animals that don't. All right, I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding today and your flexibility. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.